Oh, what's going down, AP government peeps? We got unit number 3 for you today. This one we're going to do in 10 minutes. It's all about political parties, so let's get started. All right, functions of political parties. It is a linkage institution. Please do me a favor right now, circle linkage institution. That is a very frequently asked question on multiple choice tests. Please make sure you know what a linkage institution is. It is something that connects voters to the political process. Political parties also pick candidates, they provide info to voters, and they vocalize policies for their members. Parties exist on national, state, and local levels. Now we're going to talk about primaries. An open primary is where voters can vote in primaries without registering for a party. So they can vote for a presidential candidate without registering as a Democrat or a Republican. A closed primary is the opposite. Only voters that are registered with a specific political party can vote in that primary. I live in New York State. It is a closed primary state. So unless you are registered as a Democrat or a Republican, you are not allowed to vote in primaries. Okay, jumping over to the history of political parties. We're doing a little history lesson here. Washington's farewell address, remember, warned of political parties and foreign entanglements. And immediately after he did that, political parties formed. The first party system, we have Federalists versus Democratic Republicans. That was Hamilton versus Jefferson. The second party system is Whigs versus Democrat. My boy Henry Clay versus Andrew Jackson. And here is a famous political cartoon depicting Andrew Jackson as a king. The Republican Party formed in the mid-1850s in response to the Kansas-Nebraska Act, and their platform was the non-extension of slavery. So keeping slavery where it is, but not expanding into Western territories. From the Civil War of the 1920s, we see Democrats and Republicans. They mostly differed over economic issues such as tariffs and the gold standard, whether or not the dollar will be backed up by gold. Republicans wanted the gold standard. Democrats wanted silver to be added to it, as seen through William Jennings Bryan in 1896. The election in 1932, wicked important. You see lots of blue here, lots of states voting for the Democratic candidate, FDR. There is a New Deal coalition that emerges, and many people begin to switch to the Democratic Party. These are unions, Catholics, people that live in urban areas, and African Americans. They tended to support Democrats at this time. In the election of 1968, we have the beginning of another switch with Nixon, and you see lots of red. Nixon focused on states' rights, a strong military, and law and order. And southern states began to switch to the Republican Party from what was known as the Solid South, where they would always vote for Democrats. And the South began to support Republicans beginning in 1968 and really holding true to this day. Third parties have emerged throughout U.S. history, and they often focus on a single issue. And if a major party adapts their ideas, that party disappears. Or they're also built around one individual, like Teddy Roosevelt, the Bull Moose Progressive Party of 1912. So they're often third parties are built around one individual or one idea. Once that idea is absorbed, the political party tends to disappear. So what are some impacts of political parties on politics? Well, party identification provides valuable info to voters. What do I mean by that? If you don't necessarily know much about a candidate, but you see that R or that D next to their name, that gives you a clue as to how that person can vote. Presidential coattails, this is not as applicable in recent years, but it's the idea that other people of the same party as the president get elected into office. The Electoral Laws, according to the Constitution, voting laws were left to states, but we have seen the federal government increase democracy through the 15th Amendment, which granted universal male suffrage, 19th Amendment, which is women's suffrage, 23rd Amendment, which granted electoral votes to those living in D.C., the 24th Amendment, which eliminated poll taxes, and the 26th Amendment, which lowered the voting age to 18. So the federal government has increased democracy over the years. Voting Rights Act of 1965 eliminated literacy tests. The Electoral College is what actually elects the president, and states' electoral votes are based on representation in Congress. And the more people living in that state, the more electoral votes they will have. And if there is no electoral majority, according to the 12th Amendment, the top 3 vote getters will go to the House, and each state will have 1 vote, and they will pick a candidate. This is what happened in the election of 1824 when John Quincy Adams defeated Andrew Jackson. Okay, interest groups are groups that seek to influence public policy. There are 4 types. Economic, these are labor interest groups, such as unions or businesses. Environmental, they focus on issues such as pollution and oil drilling in the environment. And you can see here is an issue that an environmental issue group would be interested in, and that is temperature of the world throughout the past 140 years. There are equality interest groups such as the NAACP or NOW, which promote rights for African Americans and women, and consumer interest groups that focus on product safety, such as Ralph Nader and Cars, for instance, and making sure that cars are safe for individuals. Interest groups lobby and they use political action committees or PACs, which they can donate money to candidates. So interest groups seek to influence policy by lobbying, again, persuading politicians or writing legislation. They can electioneer, which is providing financial assistance through PACs. PACs are allowed to provide up to $5,000 per candidate per election, so it's a primary election and a general, and up to $15,000 per party. So PACs play an important role in campaigning for individuals. Interest groups can also pursue litigation. You see this in the civil rights in the 1950s with Brown versus the Board of Education of 1954, in which they used the court system to help right wrongs. And amicus curiae briefs are something we'll talk more about in unit number 6, but this allows a group to file basically a petition or information and give it to the Supreme Court and say, hey, this is how your ruling would affect our group. So it's a way for them to petition the Supreme Court and let them know how their decisions would impact their own groups. And finally, interest groups can go public. They can use TV, they can use ads, go on the news, newspapers, etc. to spread their message. All right, news media, 4 major types you need to know. There's print, broadcast, TV, and internet. And the internet is the fastest growing by far. The media is also a linkage institution that connects people to the government, and they can report on campaigns, but they often do so as what's known as horse race journalism, where they focus on polls, not necessarily issues. They'll tell you how a candidate is doing in a contested election, who is likely to win. They'll tell you what the public thinks of the candidate, but there's not a lot of in-depth coverage of issues that faces the candidates. The president has a press secretary as well as Congress members, and they meet with the press regularly and give updates on the administration or the actions of the politician. Media bias is something you hear a lot about. Different outlets may have different ideologies and may promote a certain agenda. Everybody has a bias. It's just a matter of identifying that and being aware of it. And over the years, the news media has been concentrated in fewer hands. So fewer companies are owning more and more outlets, which allows them to control the message. Okay, well, I'm with a quick recap. Closed versus open primary. Make sure you know that history of political parties, be able to identify the history of them. Elections of 1932 and 1960, be able to say without hesitation why these were turning points. And what are some amendments or laws that increase democracy? Know them, be able to identify them and explain what they are. Interest groups and ways they influence policy. Definitely know the different ways this is done. 4 types of news media and which one is the fastest growing. And what the heck is horse race journalism? All this information can be applied to multiple choice and free response questions as well. All right, guys, look forward to seeing you back here for unit number 4 in 10 minutes. We are halfway done, and I appreciate your support. Thanks for watching. Best of luck this year, and have a good day.